Alrighty guys, welcome to the video here today for Saturday, September 17th, 2022. My name is Brock Page and I've been doing sports picks for free right here on YouTube since 2016. And with that guys, let's go ahead and dive into some free content. We're going to take a look at the Twins squaring off against the Guardians, Game 1. That's going to be a 110 Eastern first pitch. Cleveland's minus $1.80, total 7.5 runs. Shane Bieber for the Guardians, Louis Varland for Minnesota. Now the Twinkies have cashed in on the run line in 3 out of their last 4 on the road. They also held Cleveland to just 3.7 runs a game in their last 10 head-to-head meetings. And speaking of the Guardians, they've had their issues at the plate this year. These guys are second to last in home runs per contest, and they're scoring fewer runs a game than any other club in the majors. And as good as Shane Bieber's been on the bump, the Guardians took the loss in 3 out of Bieber's last 5 starts. Now, total-wise, all 5 of those Bieber starts I just mentioned fell under the number. There were also 17 and 11 of the under in their divisional home games. Meanwhile, Minnesota saw unders in 6 out of their last 10 meetings with Cleveland. I'm going to lean toward Minnesota plus 1.5, under 7.5 in Game 1. Next matchup, Reds, Cards. That is Game 1 of a doubleheader as well. And that's going to be a 1:15 Eastern first pitch. St. Louis is the $2.40 favorite. Totals 8.5 runs. Dakota Hudson for the Cards. Mike Minor for Cincinnati. The Minor's having a rough year for the Reds. He's 4-11 with an ERA close to 6. Meanwhile, as a team, the Reds have dropped 7 out of their last 8. And they've had a tough time making contact with the baseball this year. They're in the bottom 10 in strikeouts per 9 at the dish. They're taking on a Cards team who's been real tough to beat at Busch Stadium. They have a .653 win percentage in their own building. Their lineup's also in the top 3 in OPS. And they're led by Paulie Goldschmidt, who's leading the team in almost every offensive statistical category. Matter of fact, Goldie's in the top 3 in the entire league in batting average, RBI, and OPS. When it comes to the total in this one, the Cards saw overs in 6 out of their last 10 outings. They've also averaged well over 5.5 runs a game in their last 10 meetings with the Reds. And speaking of the Reds, they went 60% to the over in their last 10 themselves. I'm going to lean towards St. Louis minus 1.5. And the over 8.5 in Game 1. Next ball game, it is going to be Rockies Cubs, 2:20 p.m. East. Chicago's minus $1.45, totals 8 runs. Hayden Wesneski for Chicago, Jose Urena for Colorado. Now Urena's just 3-5 on the year with an ERA in the 6s. Meanwhile, as a team, the Rockies dropped 3 out of their last 4. And they're one of the worst road teams in the game. They have a .314 win percentage while traveling, and they score fewer runs a game on the road than any other club in the majors. Now they're also facing Hayden Wesneski for the Cubs, and he's actually done a pretty nice job in limited work. The righty's got a .312 ERA and a .92 whip. Now the Cubbies are also on a 4-game winning streak. They do a pretty nice job getting base runners at Wrigley. They're currently in the top 10 in home hits. Nico Hoerner's the club leader in batting average. He's currently hitting nearly 300 at the plate. Meanwhile, Ian Happ, he leads the team in runs batted in. Now when it comes to the total in this one, 6 out of Chicago's last 7 at home fell under the number. Meanwhile, Colorado went 3-1 to the under in their last 4 on the road. I'm going to lean towards Chicago. The Cubbies minus 145, under 8. Next ball game, Orioles at the Blue Jays, and that's going to be a .307 Eastern first pitch. Toronto's minus 155 at home, totals 8.5 runs. Jose Barrios for Toronto, Kyle Bradish for Baltimore. And even though Bradish had a few rocky outings, he's nearly at the century mark with regard to strikeouts. He's just at 97 innings of work for the year, by the way, so pretty much averaging a strikeout an inning. Now, the O's are also 7-2 in their last 9 Bradish starts, And they scored 39 total runs in those victories. Cedric Mullins leads the club in batting average. Meanwhile, Ryan Mountcastle's the team leader in runs batted in. Now they're facing Jose Barrios here today for Toronto, and he's certainly run into some trouble despite his record. The righty's actually got an ERA in the fives right now, along with a 1.38 whip. When it comes to cashing in on the run line, the Blue Jays have done a poor job of covering at home. They're cashing in on the run line in just 38% of their home games. Now, total-wise, the Blue Jays have seen their fair share of overs at Rogers Center. They're currently 61% of the over in their divisional home games. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, Baltimore has gone 18-11 to the over against the AL East on the road. I'm going to lean toward Baltimore plus 1.5 and the over 8.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Marlins at the Nationals, 4:05 Eastern first pitch. Miami is minus $1.25, totals 8. Trevor Rogers for the Marlins, Eric Fedde for Washington. Now, Feds has double-digit losses on the year, along with an ERA in the fives. The Nats have also been pitiful against the NL East. Out of 30 divisional home games this year, the Nats have gotten the W only 6 times. Meanwhile, at the plate, the Nats have been little threat hitting the long ball. They're actually in the bottom 5 in home runs per contest. Now, they're taking on Trevor Rogers, who does have a good amount of strikeouts despite his record. He's got 105 Ks in just 106 innings of work. Another guy averaging just about a strikeout an inning. And in these teams' last 10 head-to-head meetings, the Marlins have averaged nearly 6 runs a game. Now, total-wise, the Fish are 20-14 to the under against the NL East on the road. They also went 80% to the under in their last 10 Trevor Rogers starts. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Miami minus $1.25, under 8. Next ball game I have for you, it is going to be Royals at the Red Sox, and that'll be a 4:10 Eastern first pitch in Fenway. Boston's minus 160, totals 9. Rich Hill for the Bo Sox, Brady Singer for Kansas City. And as good as the Sing man's been this year, KC's been playing some terrible team baseball. They lost their last 4 straight, and they also dropped 8 out of their last 10. When it comes to hitting the baseball, they've averaged just 3.9 runs a game for the entire year. Now, one more thing to add. These guys are in the bottom 3 in home runs per contest. Now, they're taking on Rich Hill on the other side for Boston, who's giving these guys a legit chance to win this year. Hill's 7-6 on the season. The Bo Sox got the W in 4 out of Hill's last 5 starts. Now, when it comes to offensive production, the Bo Sox really have had little issues getting base runners. They're in the top 5 in team batting average, and they're led by Xander Bogaerts, who's hitting .315. Meanwhile, Rafi Devers, he's leading the club in homers and runs batted in. When it comes to the total, Boston went 6-3 to the over in their last 9 Rich Hill starts. Meanwhile, Kansas City went 3-1 to the over in their last 4 Brady Singer starts themselves. I'm going to lean toward Boston minus 160, over 9. Next contest, White Sox at the Tigers, and that's going to be a 6:10 Eastern first pitch in Detroit. The White Sox are minus 150, totals 8 runs. Johnny Cueto for Chicago, Eduardo Rodriguez for Detroit. Now, Ed-Rod's just 3-5 on the year with an ERA in the mid-4s. The Tigers also have arguably the worst lineup of hitters in baseball. They're dead last in homers, dead last in runs per game. They're facing Johnny Cueto here today, who's got an ERA in the low 3s along with a 1.20 whip. We're also looking at a White Sox club who does play their best baseball on the road. These guys are currently in the top 10 in road hits. And in addition to that, they are led by Jose Abreu, who's hitting .312 at the plate. Now, when it comes to the number in this one, Chicago held Detroit to just 2.2 runs a game in their last 10 meetings. They actually went 7-3 to the under during that span. So if you're into historical trends, certainly want to think about that one there. Meanwhile, 3 out of Detroit's last 4 at Comerica Park fell under the total. I'm going to lean toward the White Sox minus 150, under 8. Next ball game, it is going to be Rangers at the Rays, 6:10 p.m. East. Tampa Bay's minus 135, total 6.5 runs. Ryan Yarbrough for Tampa Bay, Johnny Gray for Texas. And even though Johnny Gray is having a pretty strong year, the Rangers have had a tough time winning for him. They actually lost in their last 3 straight John Gray starts. The Rangers have also had a problem with strikeouts at the dish. These guys are currently fanning more times a game than most clubs in the American League. Now, they're taking on a Tampa squad on the other side of things who's real tough to beat at the Trop. These guys have a .653 win percentage in their own building. And, of course, Randy Arozarena, he has a team-best 79 runs batted in. Now, Yandy Diaz, he's hitting nearly 300 at the plate as well. When it comes to the total in this one, Tampa went 60% to the under in their last 10. Meanwhile, the Rangers saw 4 out of their last 5 road games fall under the number as well. I'm going to lean towards Tampa Bay minus 135, under 6.5. Next contest, little interleague action. I'm talking about the Yankees at the Brewers. That's going to be a 7:10 Eastern first pitch. Now, both clubs are minus $1.10, pretty much a coin flip in this one. Total 7.5 runs. Jameson Taillon for New York, Brandon Woodruff for Milwaukee. Now, Woody struck out a whole bunch of batters this season. He's got over 150 strikeouts and a 1.12 whip. The righties also got double-digit wins along with an ERA in the 3s. And when it comes to hitting the baseball, the Brewers are a legit threat to hit for power. They're in the top 3 in homers, and they're led by Rowdy Tellez, who has 30 bombs on the year. Of course, Willie Adames, his teammate, and Hunter Renfroe, those 2 guys have combined for over 50 home runs between the 2 of them. Now, they're taking on a Yankee club on the other side of things, who's actually been, like, pretty bad in their interleague. They've been horrible in their interleague road games. These guys have lost 7 out of their last 8 away games against the National League. And I'll tell you what, just in general, this Yankee lineup has seen a significant decline in road hits. They are now actually in the bottom 10 in hits per game away from home. Now, when it comes to the total on this one, New York's 9-7 to the under against the National League this year. They also saw 3 out of their last 6 Taillon starts fall under the line. I'm going to lean toward Milwaukee minus $1.10 in the under 7.5. Next ball game I have for you, it is going to be Pirates-Mets, 7:10 p.m. East. The New York Mets are minus 320, totals 8 runs. Chris Bassett for New York, Bryce Wilson for Pittsburgh. Now, Bryce is just 3-8 on the year with an ERA in the 6s. And even if he pitches well, I don't know if Pittsburgh can store enough runs to help get the W. They're dead last in the National League in team batting average, and they're also scoring less than 3.7 runs a game. Now, they're also facing Chris Bassett, who's 13-8 with an ERA in the 3s. Now, the Bass man also has over 150 strikeouts on the year. And even if Bassett struggles, the Mets have had little issue with the bats. They actually have one of the highest team batting averages in the National League. And they're led by Jeff McNeil, who's hitting .319. Now, Pete Alonso, he's the National League leader in RBI with 113 of them. When it comes to the total, 3 out of the Mets' last 5 ball games in Flushing stayed under the number. They also went 4-3 to the under in their last 7 Bassett starts. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh on the other side, they went 4-2 to the under in their last 6 on the road. I'm going to lean toward the Mets, minus 1.5, under 8 runs. Next ball game, it is going to be Athletics taking on the Astros, 7:10 Eastern start time. Houston's minus 290 at home, totals 8 runs. Jose Urquidy for the Stros, Cole Irvin for Oakland. Now, solid as Irvin's pitched for Oakland this year, the A's just don't want to win for the guy. He's got 11 losses on the year and, of course, a losing record. Meanwhile, at the plate, the A's have the lowest team batting average in the majors. They're facing Jose Urquidy, who's 13-6 with an ERA in the threes. Now, the Astros are also on a 6-game winning streak. They scored 37 total runs during that span. Kyle Tucker's currently leading the organization in RBI with 97 of them. He currently ranks 6th in the majors in that category. Meanwhile, Yordan Alvarez, he leads the team in batting average and home runs. When it comes to the total, oddly enough, 6 out of Houston's last 7 ball games at Minute Maid Park fell under the total. Meanwhile, Oakland's gone 60% to the under in their divisional road games this year. No real surprise there. They just haven't been hitting. I'm going to lean toward Houston, -1.5, and the under 8 runs in that tight window. Next ball game, second of a doubleheader. I'm talking about the Twins at the Guardians, game 2. That's going to be a 7:10 Eastern start time. Cleveland's -130, totals 8.5 runs. Connor Pilkington for Cleveland, Josh Winder for Minnesota. And even though we did lean toward Minnesota in game 1, this is actually a fairly decent price point for Cleveland backers in game 2. Not laying too much juice here. Pretty reasonable price point. The Guardians are also 19-9 in divisional home games. They're also one of the toughest lineups to strike out in the majors. These guys are fanning only 6 times a game per 9 innings. Jose Ramirez, he's 3rd in the big leagues in RBI with 111. Now they're facing a Minnesota squad on the other side who did drop 3 out of their last 4 road games. And they also lost their last 2 straight Josh Winder starts. Now hitting-wise, when it comes to offensive production here, the Twins have struggled getting on base on the road. These guys are in the bottom 10 in hits per game away from home. When it comes to the total, the Twins did go 5-1 to the under in their last 6 Winder starts. Meanwhile, Cleveland went 80% to the under in their Connor Pilkington starts themselves. I'm going to lean toward Cleveland, -130, under 8.5. Next ball game, this is the second of a doubleheader as well. I'm talking about the Reds at the Cards, game 2. And that'll be a 7:15 Eastern start time. Now, St. Louis is the $2.50 favorite in game 2, total 7.5 runs. Jose Quintana for St. Louis, Hunter Green for Cincinnati. Now, Green's just 4-12 on the year with an ERA in the 5s. The Reds have also dropped 7 out of their last 8. And they've had a tough time with St. Louis in recent meetings. They've allowed just about 6 runs a game in their last 10 contests against St. Louis. And speaking of the Cards, they've gone 7-1 straight up in their last 8 Jose Quintana starts. Actually, has he been there for 8 games? I don't think he's pitched 8 games there. Quintana, he didn't particularly get the W, but his team has won in 7 out of his last 8 starts. That is actually a fact. And yeah, I was going to say 29-plus innings. Out of 29-plus innings with the Redbirds, Quintana's got an ERA of 3.38. So we're seeing a lot of good stuff out of Quintana, you know, in that red uniform. But yeah, 7 out of his last 8 starts. Didn't particularly result in a win in his official win-loss column, but his team did get the W. So good things happening when, you know, he makes the start, especially down the home stretch here. Now, total-wise, I actually do think Game 2 is going to stay under the number. St. Louis saw their last 3 straight Quintana starts fall under the line. Meanwhile, Cincinnati, they went 60% to the under in their last 10 themselves. So I'm going to lean towards St. Louis -1.5 and the under 7.5 in that tight window in Game 2. Next game, little NL East action. Phillies, Braves, 7:20 East. Both teams are -110, totals 8. Jake Odorizzi for the Braves, Aaron Nola for the Titans. And as great as Nola's been this year, he's got 11 losses on the season along with a losing record. The Phils have also been lackluster against the division on the road. They actually have a losing record against the NL East while traveling. Now, the Braves on the other side, they have a .658 win percentage at Truist Park. They also have one of the best lineups in the National League. They're leading the NL right now in home runs per contest. They're also in the top 3 in the entire bigs in scoring. Austin Riley, he's got a team best 36 home runs. Meanwhile, Matt Olson's got a team best 91 runs batted in. When it comes to the scoring, Atlanta saw overs in 6 out of their last 10 ball games. Meanwhile, Philadelphia is 6-3 to the over in their last 9 NOLA starts. I'm going to lean toward Atlanta minus $1.10, over 8. Next matchup, Pods, D-backs, 8:10 p.m. East. Arizona's minus $1.20, total 7. Zach Allen for Arizona, Joe Musgrove for San Diego. Now, Musgrove's got an ERA in the low 3s, along with a 1.09 whip. He's also struck out over 150 batters on the year. Now, as a team, the Pods are one of the best hitting road teams in the game. They're currently in the top 3 in runs per game away from home. Manny Machado is the club leader in batting average, homers, and runs batted in. He's also 8th in the big leagues in OPS at the dish. Now, they're taking on an Arizona club who lost 7 out of their last 10. And they've actually had a real tough time with the NL West. They're winning only 39% of their divisional contests. When it comes to the total, Arizona saw overs in 6 out of their last 10 Zach Gallen starts. Meanwhile, San Diego went 80% to the over in their last 10 Joe Musgrove starts. I'm going to lean towards San Diego plus $1, over 7. Next matchup, Dodgers, Giants, 9:05 East. Now, this game's currently off the board. Looks like John Brebbia for San Francisco, Julio Urias for Los Angeles. And even though Urias is having a great year, the Dodgers have, once again, guys, clinched the division already. And I think they're going to be more focused on, maybe staying healthy, figuring out who's going to make this playoff roster, maybe bring a few guys up, maybe play some utility guys, really kind of hone in on who they can use in the postseason and where. So even though these are meaningless games, they're not really all that meaningless. A lot of importance, with Davey Lopes and, just the decision-making with the personnel here going into the playoffs. And that is really the advantage of clinching so early. Now, they are taking on a Giants squad who has a winning record at home. They score plenty of runs at Oracle Park. These guys are in the top 10 in the majors in home scoring. Wilmer Flores, he has a team best 65 RBI on the year. Meanwhile, Thairo Estrada's got the highest qualifying batting average in the lineup here today for the Giants. I'm going to lean towards San Francisco plus 1.5, getting the job done for some run line cash. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final breakdown for the video. It is going to be Mariners Angels, 9:07 Eastern start time. The Angels are minus $1.20, total 7. Shohei Ohtani for the Angels, George Kirby for Seattle. Now, Curbs is 7-3 on the year with an ERA in the 2s. The Mariners have also gotten the W in 6 out of their last 7 George Kirby starts. They average over 6 runs a game in those victories. Eugenio Suarez, he's the club leader with 31 home runs and 84 RBI. He's in the top 25 in the majors in both of those categories. Meanwhile, Julio Rodriguez, he has the highest qualifying batting average in the lineup here today. They're taking on an Angels club on the other side who lost 6 out of their last 8. And they have a tough time in divisional play. They've gotten the W in just 10 out of 29 home games against the AL West. This Angels lineup has also had a tough time making contact with the baseball. They're striking out more times a game than any other club in the majors. Now, total-wise, LA's last 4 straight contests at Angel Stadium got over the number. They're also 8-2 to the over in their last 10 at any location. Meanwhile, Seattle's 20-13 to the over in their divisional road games. I'm going to lean towards Seattle plus $1, over 7. And with that, guys, now it's time for our quick pick recap. I like Minnesota plus 1.5, under 7.5 runs in Game 1. Give me the Cardinals minus 1.5, over 8.5 hook in Game 1 of their doubleheader. I like the Cubs minus 145, under 8. Give me Baltimore plus 1.5, over 8.5 hook. I like Miami minus $1.25, under 8 runs. Give me Boston minus 160, over 9. White Sox minus 150, under 8. Tampa Bay Rays minus 135, under 6.5. Milwaukee minus $1.10, under 7.5 runs. New York Mets minus 1.5, under 8. Houston minus 1.5, under 8 runs. Cleveland minus 130, under 8.5 in Game 2. Give me the Cardinals minus 1.5, under 7.5 runs in Game 2. Atlanta minus $1.10, over 8. I like San Diego plus $1, over 7. Give me San Francisco plus 1.5, getting the job done for some run line cash. And with my next and final free pick for the video, I'm going to lean toward the Mariners plus $1, over 7. With that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage. Now, guys, if you do end up getting a membership here today on my website, just keep in mind you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today, you're going to get access to that content every single day all the way until October 1st. I always tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. And guys, if you want to get access to every single bet, every single package, every single day, you're going to want to sign up for my board member package. It's an all-inclusive membership. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. With that said, guys, happy Saturday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.